Hi guys, so we are going to read a couple chapters of The Tale of Despereaux, okay? So we last left off with Despereaux. He was just thrown into the dungeon and he just fainted. Okay? Chapter 15, when Despereaux awoke, he was cupped in the large calloused hands of a human, and he was staring into the fire of one match, and beyond the match there was a large dark eye looking directly at him. A mouse with a red thread, boomed the voice. Oh yes, Gregory knows the ways of the mice and rats. Gregory knows, and Gregory has his own thread marking him. See here, mouse? And the match was held to a candle, and the candle spurted to life, and Despereaux saw there was a rope tied around the man's ankle. Here's the difference between us. Gregory's rope saves him, and your thread will be the death of you. The man blew the candle out, and the darkness descended, and the man's hand closed more tightly around Despereaux. And Despereaux felt his heart start to go in a crazy rhythm of fear. Who are you? He whispered. The answer to that question, Mouse, is Gregory. You are talking to Gregory the jailer, who has been buried here, keeping watch over the dungeon for decades, for centuries, for eons, for eternities. You are talking to Gregory the jailer, who, in the richest of ironies, is nothing but a prisoner here himself. Oh, said Despereaux. May I get down, Gregory? The mouse wants to know if Gregory the jailer will let him go. Listen to Gregory, Mouse. You do not want to be let go. Here in this dungeon, you are in the treacherous dark heart of the world. And if Gregory was to release you, the twistings and turnings of the dead ends and the false doorways of this place would swallow you for all eternity. Only Gregory and the rats can find their way through this maze. The rats because they know, because the way of it mirrors their own dark hearts. And Gregory because the rope is forever tied to his ankle to guide him back to the beginning. Gregory would let you go, but you would only beg for him to take you up again. The rats are coming for you, you see. They are? Sorry. Listen, said Gregory. You can hear their tails dragging through the muck and the filth, and you can hear them filing their nails and their teeth. They are coming for you. They are coming to take you apart piece by piece. Despereaux listened, and he was quite certain that he could hear the tails and the teeth of the rats, the sound of sharp things being made sharper still. They will strip all the fur from your flesh, and all the flesh from your bones, and when they are done with you, there will be nothing left except red thread and bones. Gregory has seen it many times. The tragic end of a mouse. But I need to live, said Despereaux. I can't die. You can't die? Ah, this is lovely, he says. He cannot die. Gregory closed his hand more tightly around Despereaux. And why would that be, Mouse? Why is it that you cannot die? Because I'm in love. I love somebody, and it is my duty to serve her. Love, said Gregory. Love? Hark, you? I will show you the twisted results of love. Another match was struck, and the candle was lit again, and Gregory held it up so that its flame illuminated a massive, towering, teetering pile of spoons and kettles and soup bowls. Look on that, Mouse, said Gregory. That is the monument of the foolishness of love. What is it? Asked Despereaux. He stared at the great tower that reached up into the blackness. What it looks like, spoons, bowls, kettles, all of them gathered here as hard evidence of the pain of loving a living thing. The king loved the queen, and the queen died. This monstrosity, this junk heap, is the result of love. I don't understand, said Despereaux. And you will not understand until you lose what you love. But enough about love, said Gregory. He blew out the candle. We will talk instead about your life and how Gregory will save it if you so desire. Why would you save me? Despereaux asked. Have you saved any other mice? Never, said Gregory, not one. Why would you save me then? Because you, Mouse, can tell Gregory a story. Stories are light. Light is precious in a world so dark. Begin at the beginning. Tell Gregory a story. Make some light. And because Despereaux wanted very much to live, he said, once upon a time. Yes, said Gregory happily. He raised his hand higher and then higher still until Despereaux's whiskers brushed against the leathery, time-worn ear. Go on, Mouse, said Gregory. Tell Gregory a story. And it was in this way Despereaux became the only mouse sent to the dungeon whom the rats did not reduce to a pile of bones and a piece of red thread. It was in this way that Despereaux was saved. Reader, if you don't mind, that is, where we will leave our small mouse for now, in the dark of the dungeon in the hand of an old jailer telling a story to save himself. It is time for us to turn our attention elsewhere. Time for us, reader, to speak of rats, and one rat in particular. That is the end of the first book. So here's a picture of Gregory with Despereaux. So this book has many mini books in it, and this is the second book. So the first book was from the point of view of Despereaux. He was telling this story. Despereaux is a mouse, so Despereaux is le raton. And now we're going to read a second book, mini book, in this book, and it's going to be about a rat, la rata, and his name is Chiaroscuro. Okay, so the second book, Chiaroscuro. Chapter 16, Blinded by the Light. As our story continues, reader, we must go backwards in time to the birth of a rat. So again, this happened before Despereaux was ever born. A rat named Chiaroscuro and called Roscuro. A rat born into the filth and darkness of the dungeon several years before the mouse Despereaux was born upstairs in the light. Reader, do you know the definition of the word Chiaroscuro? If you look in your dictionary, you will find that it means the arrangement of light and dark. Darkness and light together. Rats do not care for light. Roscuro's parents were having a bit of fun when they named their son. Rats have a sense of humor. Rats, in fact, think that life is very funny. And they are right, reader. They are right. In the case of Chiaroscuro, however, the joke had a hint of prophecy to it. For it happened that when Roscuro was a very young rat, he happened upon a great length of rope on the dungeon floor. Ah, what have we here, said Roscuro. Being a rat, he immediately began to nibble on the rope. Stop that, boomed a voice, and a great hand came out of the darkness and picked up the rat by his tail and held him, suspended upside down. Were you nibbling on Gregory's rope, rat? Who wants to know, said Roscuro, for even upside down, he was still a rat. You smart aleck, you rat. You smart aleck, you rat, nibbling on Gregory's rope. Gregory will teach you to mess with his rope. And keeping Roscuro upside down, Gregory lit a match with the nail of his thumb, then held the brilliant flame right in Roscuro's face. Ah, said Roscuro. He pulled his head back, away from the light, but alas, he did not close his eyes, and the flame exploded around him and danced inside him. Has no one told you the rules, said Gregory. What rules? Gregory's rope, rat, is off limits. So? Apologize for chewing on Gregory's rope. I will not, said Roscuro. Apologize. No. Filthy rat, said Gregory. You black-souled thing. Gregory has had it with you rats. He held the match closer to Roscuro's face, and a terrible smell of burnt whiskers rose around the jailer and the rat. And then the match went out, and Gregory released Roscuro's tail and flung him back into the darkness. Do not ever touch Gregory's rope again, or you will be sorry. Roscuro sat on the dungeon floor. His whiskers on the left side of his face were gone, but his heart was beating hard, and though the light from the match had disappeared, it still danced, still before the rat's eyes, even when he closed them. Light, he said aloud, and then he whispered the word again, light. From that moment forward, Roscuro showed an abnormal, inordinate interest in illumination of all sorts. It's a really fancy way of saying he really liked the light and he was looking for it. He was always in the darkness of the dungeon, on the lookout for light, the smallest glimmer, the tiniest shimmer. His rat soul longed inexplicably for it. He began to think that light was the only thing that gave life meaning, and he despaired that there was so little of it to be had. He finally voiced the sentiment to a friend of his, a very old one-eared rat named Botticelli Rimorso. I think, said Roscuro, that the meaning of life is light. Light, said Botticelli. You kill me. Light has nothing to do with it. What does it all mean then? Asked Roscuro. The meaning of life, said Botticelli, is suffering, specifically the suffering of others. Prisoners, for instance. Reducing a prisoner to weeping and wailing and begging is a delightful way to invest your existence with meaning. As he spoke, Botticelli swung from one extraordinary long fingernail to his. Let me say that again. As he spoke, Botticelli swung from one extraordinarily long nail on his right front paw, a heart-shaped locket. He had taken the locket from a prisoner and hung it on a thin braided rope. Whenever Botticelli spoke, the locket moved back and forth as it swung. Are you listening? Botticelli said to Roscuro. I'm listening. Good, said Botticelli. Do as I say, and your life will be full of meaning. This is how to torture a prisoner. First, you must convince him that you are his friend. Listen to him. Encourage him to confess his sins, and when the time is right, talk to him. Tell him what he wants to hear. Tell him, for instance, that you will forgive him. This is a wonderful joke to play on a prisoner, to promise forgiveness. Why? Said Roscuro. His eyes went back and forth, watching the locket. Because, said Botticelli, you will promise it. Ha! But you will not grant it. You will gain his trust. And then you deny him. You refuse to offer the very thing he wants. Forgiveness, freedom, friendship, whatever it is his heart most desires, you withhold. At this point in his lecture, Botticelli laughed so hard that he had to sit down and catch his breath. The locket swayed back and forth, and then stopped altogether. Ha, said Botticelli. Ha, ha, ha. You gain his trust, you refuse him, and ha, ha, you become what you knew you were all along. What you knew you were all along. Not a friend, not a confessor, not a forgiver, but ha, ha, a rat. Botticelli wiped his eyes and shook his head and sighed a sigh of great contentment. He set the locket in motion again. At that point, it is most effective to run back and forth over the prisoner's feet, inducing physical terror along with the emotional sort. Oh, he said, it is such a lovely game, such a lovely game. And it is just absolutely chock full of meaning. I would like very much to torture a prisoner, said Roscuro. I would like to make someone suffer. Your time will come, said Botticelli, certainly. All the prisoners are spoken for, but another prisoner will arrive sooner or later. How do I know this to be true? Because, Roscuro, thankfully, there is evil in this world, and the presence of evil guarantees the existence of prisoners. So soon, there will be a prisoner for me? Yes, said Botticelli, yes. I'm looking forward to it. Ha ha ha, of course you're looking forward to it. You are looking forward to it because you're a rat, a real rat. Yes, said Roscuro, I'm a real rat. Concerned not at all with the light, said Botticelli. Concerned not at all with the light, repeated Roscuro. Botticelli laughed again and shook his head. The locket, suspended from the long nail on his paw, swung back and forth. You, my young friend, are a rat. Exactly, yes, evil, prisoners, rats, suffering. It all fits together so neatly, so sweetly. Oh, it is a lovely world, a lovely, dark world. So we're going to stop there today. I want you to think about the difference between the world that Despereaux, our mouse, lived in, and the world that Roscuro, our rat, lives in. They're very different. And think about maybe how that could affect them.